Controversial, yes, of which we know season 7 has been released.
We'd like to welcome you back.
And it was so crazy that I had to watch it twice.
With this type of technology, especially, let's put it this way: if quantum computing can make reality alter, why does it make everybody's reality alter? I think that's my concern.
Yeah, and I don't know how real this technology already is. I know obviously quantum computing is something that's being developed.
So Xcode is basically going to be, well, it is a platform that is going to allow people to vibe code.
Xcode, you're saying they're partnering it with it to become a vibe coder. This kind of technology gets in the hands of the wrong people or the right people, how reality would be affected. Welcome back to yet another episode of Cyber Digest. Joined with me, Khotso Mashiane. And this week we have some 3 really interesting topics. If you've ever wanted to quantum leap into a different reality where you had full control of your life, stay tuned for this episode. And we've got 2 interesting stories coming out of Apple. But I'm not alone. Today I'm joined by my co-hosts.
Welcome back, everybody, to Cyber Digest, where we decode the digital matrix. This is essentially the home of the geeks and land of the tech jockeys. But yeah, we're back again.
Nice.
And yeah, we're bringing you all the latest tech news within the very bubbling world of the tech community.
Welcome back, guys. I've got so many questions, gentlemen. I mean, the stories we're covering are so controversial. Let's start with the first one.
Well, first one, controversial, yes, of course. So we're going to continue our series of Black Mirror, which we know season 7 has been released. We're going to be covering episode 2 today. And essentially, this episode was called Bête Noire. And it was so crazy that I had to watch it twice. And there was still a couple of loopholes that I missed. So essentially, this girl works at a food company, right? And a friend of hers from university or high school comes back on some revenge scheming kind of things. And essentially, this girl has a necklace around her neck. Just a caution, there are spoilers in this episode. She has a necklace around her neck, and it's essentially a remote controller that allows her to quantum leap between universes. So I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of quantum leaping before, and if you have, what would you use that kind of power for?
That's crazy. So how I understand quantum leaping is that there's an infinite number of universes, almost like a multiverse, and you can kind of hop in and out of those different parallel universes. I don't know, man. I would obviously, I think like any normal person, I'm going to the universe where I am a rich tech billionaire.
Okay.
With all the baddies.
Fair. That's fair.
Oh, of course, also fixing the world and stuff.
Yeah, that comes late. That comes much later, though, I'm sure.
I think for me, you know, one of the concerns I've got is with this type of technology, especially, let's put it this way: if quantum computing can make reality alter, why does it make everybody's reality alter? I think that's my concern, to say, isn't it only supposed to make your reality alter? How come is it making other people who don't know that you're using it's reality alter?
Well, actually, funny that you ask. In this particular episode, like you're asking, the way that this lady has structured her quantum computing device is that this one lady that she's targeting is the only one that's aware that these changes are being made. So in the beginning of the episode, you kind of think that it's more of a Mandela Effect, where, you know, the Bernies and the Barneys example, essentially her colleagues are saying that there's a restaurant or a fast food chain called Bernie's, and she's always known it as Barney's because her boyfriend even has the cap and her boyfriend's always worked there. And essentially at the end of the episode, she explains that she catered it specifically to attack this one woman. That's how she built the system.
Yeah. And so if I'm not mistaken, that device or the computer, was like called a quantum compiler. And so she can kind of pick and choose certain things from different parallel universes to kind of shape and warp or weave into the current reality. And so that's how she was essentially using that device to gaslight our protagonist.
Her victim,
yeah. Which is crazy because, you know, what's going on in the episode is that the protagonist, her name is Maria. She's like sending emails, and then this other girl, the antagonist, she's like changing reality to make the email different. And so then the protagonist seems very crazy to everybody. Like, no, I did this.
Because everyone else is seeing it as normal.
So she keeps on just gaslighting this girl and making her think that, well, to her, everything was happening normally. But of course, because the antagonist is kind of changing reality, because she's really trying to mess with her. She's trying to mess with her, like everything. Like she's really just messing with her. part of a revenge scheme. And so, yeah, it was a crazy episode.
Yeah, and I don't know how real this technology already is. I know obviously quantum computing is something that's being developed as we speak. But I kind of wonder how, if this kind of technology gets in the hands of the wrong people or the right people, how reality would be affected in the long term. Because obviously people will be playing with like short-term things like, you know, I have a red jersey today, tomorrow it's blue, or I'm the president of this country. But over time, what does that kind of reality look like?
Very dangerous. I mean, we're looking at, you're changing the frequency, because I mean, if we had to try and explain in terms of computers, we'd say everybody's on some frequency, right? And you're changing the frequency, or you're returning the frequency of that person and you. Well, not you actually, because you're saying she knew what was going on.
She said that it fine tunes your corporal frequencies, which I guess is like a part of the brain, to a specific reality's frequency. So think of it as one radio station tuning up to a specific radio tower. She's saying that if you were connected to this one tower, she can just press this button and alter it to the next radio, the radio tower. That's like the nearest one to your current radio tower, if that makes sense.
And so, you know, the target was so specific, whereas the protagonist, she essentially loses her job because this lady was changing so much within reality, and which was making the protagonist very confused and seemed crazy amongst everybody. It's like, you know, she essentially wrote an ingredient for one of the products that they were making, and she had a specific ingredient there that she put, but the lady changed it to a different
Carrageenan or something.
And apparently that ingredient doesn't exist or something like that. And so much was happening. It's just crazy because she changed so many things, but essentially she was really just gaslighting her. She was gaslighting her, and she seemed crazy. And it was such a cool, even just the way it ended, it was such a cool concept, because eventually our protagonist gets a hold of this pendant that changes reality, and she decides to
become the empress
of the universe.
Yeah.
Sounding very Limpopo, very
wow,
witchcraft, very, you know,
actually,
people
if you take a step back, and the fact that she just verbalized it, she just said,
that's crazy,
and the reality immediately changes in that moment.
Because if it was within the South African context, this was actually happening for real. Some people would say Lomuntu is
magic.
Baloyi, where like you know, they've been bewitched, they're going crazy.
And I think, you know, having grown up in Limpopo, we used to hear like funny stories. Like someone would go to the bathroom and say, literally, they would try and prove to the whole school that they heard Pinky Pinky in the bathroom. A ghost.
Yes.
Oh, that was
I remember that.
Oh, did that happen
No,
also?
it happened here in Gauteng.
Yeah, it
for
happened.
Sure.
So maybe it happened everywhere. But, you know, having watched so many exorcism stories and encounters, everybody who sort of goes through deliverance or exorcism, they always say, I heard voices.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, you know, those voices are computer-based.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because if they are, then
I mean, it's interesting. You know, maybe it's all a simulation of some sorts. Who knows? I don't know. You know, maybe there's people who have and the nice thing is like when the protagonist broke into the antagonist's apartment or house, and there's this room where it was just service. like
a basement or something.
Yeah, it's just service, and you can see like this big computers and all these devices that are literally powering this magic of some sorts, which was was quite crazy. I mean, there's a scene where you know, the lady who becomes the victim, you know, she drinks one of her colleagues' milk, and then when the colleague comes, she's like, who drank my milk? But it was the other lady who drank it, the one who's warping and changing things.
The witch. Let's call her the witch.
The witch. It was the witch that changed it. But she convinces everybody in the room that no, it was actually the main character, our protagonist, who drank it. But of course, everything's on camera. So what they should be seeing is the antagonist, who's the witch, drinking it. But when they get to the camera footage, it's the main character who drank the milk. Because
it's like the reality completely changes.
Yeah, she changed reality. And then
she said the natology.
And then she was like, oh no, it can't be me who drank almond milk because I have an allergy. But then initially she said almond allergy. But then she ends up saying nut allergy.
Nut allergy, yeah. And basically nut allergy is not a real thing. It's not a real concept in this universe.
That's
so it's quite
scary.
interesting.
I mean, I'm just thinking about it. You could literally let's say she never visited that girl's house and found
Yeah.
the broom or whatever she's using to bewitch her. Would that then mean that you'd start believing that like she doesn't deserve a job and
Yeah.
Probably.
everything else? That's quite
She was
scary.
gonna spiral. Damn. And like in the end, like she crashed out. Like she.
And it was like a valid crash out.
Yeah.
But why am I getting the vibe that Black Mirror and their producers are going to Nigeria and they're watching Nollywood stories, and as a result of that, they're coming up with all these concepts? Because I've heard of this before, where women marry two men, and there's always like a little funny story where the other one, whenever the husband comes back, she does something, and it seems like they're playing around Nollywood,
knows?
but they've just turned the witch into a computer.
Who knows? I mean, there were a lot of criticisms positive towards the later seasons. Like they were kind of losing their source, kind of veering away from the quality of the first season. So maybe they were inspired by Nollywood and some of these beautiful stories that are told in our African continents.
And if they are, it's working, and I think it's working quite well for them, to be very honest. So I don't know. I know all of us here are frequent users of Apple. I'm quite the Apple fanatic, except when they're not delivering on their AI promises. So this past weekend, and I guess I'll tie this into my tech spotlight for the week, I went down a really deep rabbit hole on this website called apple.developer.com. Right. And essentially, it's a platform for mainly developers, but they obviously cater as well to people that are coders, to designers, to product managers, to testers, and even students. So in layman's terms, just to give a rough overview of the platform, it's essentially a hub that allows anybody that wants to build an app or a website or any kind of Apple product to use Apple's resources. So it has tutorials on how to build for Vision OS, for example, from scratch. It tells you what the designer assets are, what the guidelines are, how to be able to qualify to become a developer for Apple. And essentially, if you wanted to be able to create software for Apple, it only costs $99 per annum. And if you really think about it, if you're able to successfully create a product for Apple and sell it to them, how much more, your return on investment would be. So the reason why I think I got so deep into this website, one, the user interface is designed so seamlessly, so beautiful, and the experience was like so easy for me, right? So if you were to like explore the platform, when you land on the website, it has different tabs at the top for latest Apple news. It has a Discover tab, it has a Design tab, it has, distribution, support, all of those different things.
Yeah.
But I went specifically to the design and develop areas because I've been so interested in the Vision Pro, because it hasn't obviously arrived in South Africa yet. I want to know as much as possible in preparation.
Apple needs to do the things.
They really need to do anything they can, guys, to be able to bring that to South Africa. So I just want to learn everything I can. And essentially, I went down a rabbit hole more on the developer side than I did on the design side. And I learned essentially how you can begin designing any kind of product, like the things that they considered before even developing the apps, from like spatial computing to how the sound would work to, how far certain design elements should be from the viewer's eyes and all of these different things. And it kind of gave me a great appreciation for the legacy that Steve Jobs left behind, which is great design comes first. And I could see it here, not only on the website, but in how intentional they are with designing their software for all these different products, from, the iPhone to the Vision Pro to even your watches and your AirPods. It's truly fascinating, and I can't wait to continue learning. And I don't know, I'm not promising anything, but maybe eventually.
You're trying to work on something?
Maybe, but that's not where my sights are now. I'm still more so curious and just exploring what Apple has to offer.
That sounds good. I think a lot of these companies are investing a lot into developer platforms, which is a great move, because I think most of them have developer platforms. So I think it's good, man, that even just Apple, they kind of strengthening that part of their business. As a tech company, it's very important that you kind of foster the community of developers, because those are essentially the people that are going to build you great apps. So I think, kudos to them, man, for that.
True.
And I think, they were sort of slowing down because, we're in the AI era. Everybody's releasing stuff and they were sort of quiet.
Yeah.
So I think this is definitely going to bring them back up. I think for me, what's quite cool is that they're partnering with Anthropic Claude, which is a AI startup, which really means big stuff for AI startups. The fact that you can literally have a startup that's new, and Apple says, hey, one of the richest companies in the world, we want to partner with you. It truly means something big for entrepreneurs out there. And if you're a tech guy or tech entrepreneur, you should be inspired, because we usually think that Apple only partner with companies that have been around for hundreds of years or, well, lots of years. And for them to choose a small AI start, well, Anthropic is now a little bit big, but for them to go for an AI startup, that's quite amazing. Well done to them.
And I mean, if we could maybe break down what Anthropic really is, because I think maybe some viewers don't really understand or know what Anthropic is. Could you break that down?
Oh, so Anthropic is basically, so if you think of OpenAI, you think of Gemini. Anthropic is basically that, they a young startup company that developed this AI model that is also just meant to be accessible to a lot of people. If I'm not mistaken, they are open source. Yeah. So Anthropic is working with Apple. Basically, they're working on something called Xcode. So Xcode is basically going to be, well, it is a platform that is going to allow people to vibe code. So what is vibe coding, if you guys want to know? Well, so vibe coding is essentially a new way of programming where developers give high-level instructions or describe the vibe or the intention of what they want to build. Instead of just writing hundreds of lines of code, you can kind of just give it a prompt and say you're looking to build this kind of app or system, and that's what it is. It captures that and it builds that. It's AI, powered on AI. So, and this is great because, like Mpho said, I did feel also like Apple was slowing down. And so when they were slowing down, I kind of had this thought that maybe they're working on something bigger than everybody's working on. But their recent moves like Apple Intelligence and this suggest that they actually have just been slow to all this technology.
Facts.
I mean, vibe coding has been a thing. Like, come on, it's been a thing. And the fact that even Microsoft had developed GitHub and then also they incorporated Copilot into it. So GitHub is basically this. It's basically a community or a platform where people can share code. So like social media, people share posts and videos and so forth. GitHub is a platform where developers can share code, interact and collaborate on code. And so I think this is a move to kind of compete with GitHub to kind of foster their own platform where they can bring in a lot of developers and also people. So yeah, I think it's a good move, but a very late move.
Yeah, it's a late move, as always, from Apple. We know that they always, release things late, and it's something that's well known, across the board. But I've always seen it as they're perfecting a product to become on top, to come out on top of everybody else. But like you were saying, with the Apple Intelligence, that's probably one of the first times that was not the case at all.
Yeah.
You can definitely say with the Vision Pro that they definitely surpassed what Meta is doing. I can confidently say that much. But yeah, I think their partnership with Anthropic is a really solid move.
I think so.
And I think it's going to empower, the Apple community, the Apple developer community, to be able to create stronger products for Apple. It's quite exciting.
I think it also just allows a lot of people to also just create products for iPhones, iPads, and Apple, like that, their whole product range, and kind of also just create systems and apps instead of just developers, but also just everyday people who just actually want to be involved within this space. I mean, vibe coding is an actual thing, as in prompt engineering is a thing. So if you learn how to build good prompts, you can learn how to build good systems.
So I know Xcode is something that came even before Swift, which is another one of the developer platforms on appledeveloper.com. Xcode, you're saying they're partnering with it to become a vibe coder.
So basically the idea is they're going to work with, of course, Anthropic Claude, which AI, integrate that AI and build this environment where people can use AI to build apps, systems for Apple products, of course. So and of course you can also use languages like Swift and Objective-C, but it's basically a platform where people can vibe code.
Nice.
It's simply that.
It's quite interesting. I mean, this week we had a bit of chaos in terms of the White House. Donald Trump, somebody created a picture of Donald Trump as the Pope using AI. Did you guys see it?
I didn't actually.
So he was seated.
Was it like a deep fake?
Yeah, it was a deep fake. And he was the Pope. And a lot of people got so upset. And in the US, apparently congressmen are now serving subpoenas to Google, Meta, OpenAI. And they're basically saying that they want AI to be fair. They find that it's very unfair, especially when it comes to like, biases and, politics. And Trump's response was quite interesting. He basically said that he wants to start teaching American kids AI from a young age, which I thought is quite special because China did that first, right?
Yeah, I think we did announce it like 2-3 weeks ago that
Yeah.
they're going to integrate it into the educational system.
How the tables are turning. I mean, America's second when it comes to education. That's quite interesting.
But didn't Donald Trump also do this in, what country was it, where he essentially made a whole video of himself as like
Israel.
yes.
Yeah, was it Israel?
Gaza.
Gaza.
in
Oh,
Gaza,
yes.
where he basically made like this haven where
was
him,
Palestine,
Elon Musk, and a whole lot of like other celebrities were essentially in like a paradise in this place, and all the other people from like, I don't know, you said it was Gaza or Israel. I don't know where it was.
I think it was a video of Palestine, right?
Yeah, I think it was the Gaza Strip. He basically said he's going to redo it.
So essentially, people are coming from the ruins, from the dusty, broken down buildings into this paradise, and he's making it look like heaven. So one thing about those tables, I will always say they will turn, because now he wants to flip the switch on something now that he's the victim instead of somebody else. That's very funny to me. That's very, very
Actually,
funny
very
to me.
hypocritical.
Yeah.
We live in interesting times. I think everybody's trying to get in on the AI hub quite quickly. I mean, I saw recently Alibaba. They are now getting involved in AI. So it's quite interesting to see that the guys that were even in e-commerce that were doing something completely different,
Oh, yeah.
they're now also looking at that. And I think for me, the most interesting thing, and this might be my tech spotlight of the week, the most interesting thing is I think there's a new platform that allows you to get news through AI from news networks, but removes the networks you got it from. So essentially, it's like a deep research where you're getting news from CNN, Fox, wherever you're getting it from, but it doesn't say it's from Fox or it's from CNN. And I tried it and I was like, it helps you process news a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because you don't base it on a rumor or a perception of what you have, but also it's dangerous because
It's dangerous. That sounds dangerous.
you're no longer verifying this.
Does it
Yes.
remove the bias that comes with the news network as well, or it just removes their name?
I'd have to check that. Yeah, I'd have to check that. I didn't check that whether it removes the bias, but I think it comes with the bias. I think it comes with the bias.
I think also just consuming news that doesn't have any sources does sound like a slippery slope. So
Yeah, guys, you can't fully trust AI.
yeah.
There's no ways you can fully put your trust in
Because
AI.
we do know it also hallucinates
Exactly.
from time to time. So yeah, you definitely do. So yeah, I don't know if you had a tech spotlight.
That was my tech spotlight, the Apple developer platform.
My tech spotlight is actually, again, for the third week running, Notebook LM, but for the mere fact that it's coming to devices like your phone
Like
devices,
mobile.
yeah,
Nice.
on iOS and on Android. So it's going to be more accessible to everybody because it was just kind of like a web app, and so now it's coming to mobile phones and desktops.
so
So
convenient.
yeah, man, that is actually really cool, and so that's just going to allow people to really break down their info. Like, there's so much you can actually do with it. I mean, you can just have your phone in your pocket, listen to like
The
a podcast of
yes.
a computer science study book or some stuff. So yeah, that's my tech spotlight.
Very cool. I think, guys, we want to know from you guys, what's your tech spotlight? Because obviously you guys always hear ours. So we want to know, leave us in the comment section, let us know what's your tech spotlight. And we're going to be inviting more guests. That's something we're going to be doing that's quite interesting. So let us know the guests that you want to see coming through to the podcast, and we'll definitely make sure that we try and invite them. But from us, thank you so much for joining in. And remember to share and like this video. It's important that you share it. You help us reach more people and educate more people. Thank you so much.